Do you think Madagascar is lemurs, baobabs, and beautiful sunsets over the Indian Ocean? Then how about an island under which scientists found fragments of a continent 3 billion years old? And this is official science, not legends. Or the bones of a bird weighing 500 kilograms with nicks from tools, 8,000 years before humans officially appeared here. And finally, a pirate republic about which there are written records, but from which not a single stone, nor a coin, nor a trace on the ground has been found. Today, 7 mysteries of the island called the 8th continent. And the further we go, the harder it is to explain. It is customary to speak about Madagascar in 2 registers, either the tourist one, beaches, wild nature, exoticism, or the ecological one, deforestation, endangered species, the climate crisis. Both registers are convenient. Both lead attention away from the question that has long hung over this island without an answer. What actually happened here for the last few million years? And who was here before us? Madagascar separated from India approximately 88 million years ago. Before that, from Africa even earlier. It drifted in the Indian Ocean in solitude longer than most of Europe's mountain ranges have existed. During this time, life formed here that exists nowhere else on Earth. 90% of the island's animals and plants are endemics. They do not live in Africa, nor in Asia, nor in Australia, only here. This is not just an island, it is a separate planet with an alien biology. But this planet has a foundation. It is much older than it seemed, and it is from this foundation that the story you were not told begins. Let's start with what science has recognized officially and what immediately broke all the convenient schemes. In the year 2013, a group of geologists led by the Norwegian scientist Trond Torsvik published a study in the journal Nature Geoscience. They studied zircons, tiny crystals extracted from volcanic rocks on the island of Mauritius. Zircons are geological clocks. They accumulate and store an isotopic signal corresponding to the age of the rock from which they were originally formed. This is not an interpretation, it is a direct physical measurement. And here is what the analysis showed. The crystals were between 2 and 3 billion years old, on an island that, as a volcanic structure, is not even 10 million years old. Where did they come from? There is only one answer: from below. Under Mauritius and under Madagascar, beneath a layer of young volcanic rock, lie fragments of an ancient continent. Geologists named it Mauritia. This is not Atlantis and not a fantasy. It is a documented scientific fact, confirmed again in the year 2017 by new samples from other parts of the Indian Ocean floor. The New York Times wrote about this discovery in February of 2017 under the headline, "Fragments of a continent were found in the Indian Ocean where they shouldn't be." What happened to this continent? When, about 85 million years ago, India and Madagascar began to move apart, the Mauritia Plate ended up between them. It could not withstand the tension and cracked. One part went under India, the other remained under what became the floor of the Indian Ocean. Madagascar remained as the above water part of this fragment, the visible tip of something that was once much larger. This overturns not mythology, but geology. Under the feet of anyone standing on Madagascar is rock 3 billion years old. Once there was dry land here, surrounded by a sea that no longer exists. A sunken world is not a metaphor. It is literally a sunken world. And 90% of the unique species of this island are not a coincidence of isolation. This is, perhaps, the heritage of a biology that developed on that former continent while the rest of the world went its own way. 6 out of the 8 species of baobabs known on Earth are only here. All 107 species of lemurs are only here. The fossa, a predator that looks like a cat and a mongoose at the same time, is only here. Biologists call this phenomenon relict conservatism. Life here has preserved forms that have long since disappeared in the rest of the world. A living museum of evolution, where time followed different rules. What lived on this ancient continent before us, we do not know. What remains of it on the surface is only Madagascar, with its 90% of species that exist nowhere else. Perhaps this is the answer. It wasn't that the island survived isolation. The island is the last piece of something that was once a whole world. And this world is still here, just most of it is underwater. But a sunken continent is not even the strangest thing under this island. Let's move in time, just 10,000 years ago, and we find ourselves before a fact that official science prefers to utter quietly. A bird lived on Madagascar. Its name was Epiornis, or the elephant bird. Height, up to 3 meters. Weight, up to 500 kilograms. It is roughly like a small motorcycle with wings, which, however, did not fly. The eggs of this bird had a volume of about 10 liters. That is more than 160 chicken eggs poured into one shell. The diameter of the egg was about 30 centimeters. The shell thickness was more than a centimeter. The shell is stronger than that of any other known egg in Earth's history. These eggs are still found intact in the coastal dunes of the island. Not as fossils, specifically as shell, albeit ancient. Local fishermen use them as buckets and containers for water. About 40 whole specimens are kept in the world's museums. The last time a whole egg was found was in the year 2015, in a dune on the northwest coast. But here is what is interesting not in the eggs, but in the bones. In the year 2018, an international group of researchers led by James Hansford from the Zoological Society of London published results in the journal Science Advances from an analysis of elephant bird bones found in the north of the island. On the bones were cuts and crushing marks characteristic of butchering with sharp stone tools. Not the claws of a predator, not traces of decay, specifically tool notches. Radiocarbon dating gave a figure, approximately 10,500 years ago. Someone worked on these bones. The problem is that officially, humans appeared on Madagascar about 2,000 years ago. At most, by the boldest estimates, about 4,000. This is a gap of at least 6,000 years. 6,000 years during which someone on the island hunted birds weighing as much as a motorcycle and left marks on the bones, and then disappeared without a trace. Without settlements, without charcoal from hearths, without spearheads, only notches on 3 femurs in different parts of the island. Who it was, there is no honest answer. Researchers offer a cautious version. Perhaps small mobile groups of hunter-gatherers existed on the island, who came seasonally and left no permanent traces. Perhaps, but this is a hypothesis, not an explanation. The official answer to the question, who was the first human of Madagascar, is still open. And Marco Polo, passing through trade routes in the Indian Ocean in the 13th century, described the rock bird, a creature of such a size that it was capable of lifting an elephant and carrying it to its nest. Geographers long considered this a tall tale by a merchant with a rich imagination. Now we know. On an island a few days' journey from his trade routes, there really lived a bird 3 meters tall and weighing 500 kilograms. It existed. Its eggs still lie in the dunes. Maybe someone told him the truth after all. Elephant birds supposedly became extinct in the 17th century, very recently by historical standards. This means that for hundreds of years, humans lived alongside a creature from legends. They saw it. They hunted it. Perhaps they feared it. And then it disappeared. And we pretended that this was how it was intended. But who were those people who settled this island in earnest? The answer to this question is one of the most striking facts in the entire history of human migrations, and it completely contradicts geographical logic. If you look at the map, the first answer is obvious. Madagascar is 400 kilometers from the east coast of Africa. The nearest shore is Mozambique. It is logical that the island was settled by Africans. This is exactly what researchers assumed for decades. The language of the Malagasy sounds melodic and unlike Swahili or Bantu, but this was written off as long isolation. DNA said something else. Studies of the genomes of modern Malagasy people provided a picture that is difficult to explain without stopping to reread it again. Approximately 1/3 of their genetic material, and in a number of ethnic groups significantly more, originates from Southeast Asia. Not from the nearest coast of Africa, from Indonesia. specifically from the island of Borneo. A study in 2016 in the journal PNAs allowed for the identification of the source with unexpected precision. The ancestors of the Malagasy originate from a trading settlement in southeast Borneo that existed approximately in the first millennium of our era. The village has been identified. The genetics match. The distance from Borneo to Madagascar is about 6,000 kilometers, across the open Indian Ocean. Without intermediate islands to stop and replenish supplies, not like the Polynesian navigators who hopped from atoll to atoll, directly across open water. They went out into this ocean with wooden catamaran boats, navigating by the stars, the color of the water, and the behavior of birds. Without metal compasses, without an astrolabe, without maps, because cartography did not exist for these latitudes then. And they found one island, slightly smaller than France, in the middle of a vast space of water. This is one of the boldest navigational operations in human history, accomplished 1,000 years before Columbus, without any documentation, only by memory and skill passed from generation to generation. The longest non-stop sea crossing that we know of in the prehistoric era. At the same time, the Malagasy language is Austronesian. It is related to the languages of Indonesia and the Philippines significantly more than to any African language. This is a separate linguistic confirmation of what DNA has already proven genetically, and the folklore of the island preserves the memory of a people who were here before. They are called the Vizimba. In legends, small people living in forests and by rivers, speaking an incomprehensible language. When the Austronesians from Borneo arrived, the Vizimba went deep into the island, into the mountains and thickets. What happened to them next, the legends do not finish saying. They just left, disappeared. Geneticists tried to find a trace of the Vizimba in the DNA of modern residents. There are small archaic components whose origin has not yet been established unequivocally. This is not a confirmation of the legend, but not a refutation either, simply a gap. They crossed 6,000 kilometers of ocean and found an island where someone already was. What happened between them, history preferred not to record. And now, to where the Earth itself has built itself into a form that a human cannot pass. On the west coast of Madagascar, in the province of Malaki, stands a place called the last untouched landscape on Earth. Not because of its beauty, but because of its impassability. Singi de Bemaraha. A plateau of limestone needles from 5 to 30 meters high, formed over 200 million years of the impact of water and wind on limestone rock. The needles are as sharp as surgical scalpel blades. The gaps between them are from 20 centimeters to a meter. Not a single horizontal surface on which one could stand with both feet at the same time. The picture is this: thousands of stone blades, going vertically up to the level of a 3-story house, standing tightly against each other, without a flat base, without a passage. The entire plateau is a chaotic forest of sharp stone with an area of about 1,600 square kilometers. This is larger than the territory of Moscow within the Moscow Ring Road. UNESCO included Singi on the World Heritage List in '98, and in the same document indicated that a significant part of the territory is practically inaccessible for research. Practically. This word does a lot of work. Not a single expedition has crossed the entire massif. Not because there is no desire, but because there is no physical possibility. Special equipment is cut on the sharp edges within the first hours. Jumping from point to point at a height of 10 to 15 meters above the ground is the only way to move inside, and even then, only for short stretches. The local residents, the Sakalava, know several narrow paths along the very edge of the plateau, worn down by generations. What is located in the central part, no one knew until the satellite era. Satellites showed. They live inside. Biologists working on the periphery of the massif and filming from drones recorded the movement of animals in the depths of the massif. Sounds, traces at narrow exits, droppings of species that are not clearly identified. In the year 2019, a group of French and Malagasy zoologists attempted to enter the central part with rope climbing equipment and specially reinforced boots. They covered about 2 kilometers in 4 days and were forced to turn back. The equipment did not hold up. In those 2 kilometers, they found traces of a large, predatory mammal that did not correspond in size to any of the known species of fossa, the island's only large predator. They took samples. Genetic analysis gave a result that the authors described cautiously, unexpectedly distant from known Malagasy lineages. A full study in a peer-reviewed journal was not published. The official reason? Insufficient volume of samples for final conclusions. This means the following. In the heart of the island, in the stone forest where a human cannot enter with any available equipment, lives something that science does not yet have a name for, nor a description, nor a confirmed belonging to known species. Not because it is impossible, because you cannot get there. If Madagascar has a secret that it physically guards, this is it. And beneath the surface of the island is a completely different world. Also closed, also with secrets. But it is no longer nature guarding them, but people. In the north of the island, in the area of the namesake reserve, a limestone massif hides one of the largest underground labyrinths of Madagascar, the Ankarana Cave and Canyon System. The total length of known passages exceeds 100 kilometers. Part of them are huge dry galleries up to 50 meters high, where a 5-story house could fit. Part are flooded by underground rivers feeding the dry surface landscape. Part are closed by collapses that are thousands of years old. Something unexpected was found in the caves, and this changed the understanding of what the island was like quite recently. Subfossil bones. These are something between a fossil and a fresh find. Not fully mineralized, retaining part of the organic components. In Ankarana, they were found by the hundreds in several different caves, and among them, the remains of lemurs of a size that does not exist anywhere on Earth today. Paleopropithecus, a lemur about the size of a gorilla, lazy and slow, spending time in trees upside down like a sloth. Archaeoindris, weighing by calculated estimates about 160 kilograms, the largest of all primates ever to live on Madagascar. Megalodapus, a creature with a head similar to a horse's and a body the size of a human, which ate leaves and was in no particular hurry. All these creatures became extinct relatively recently, from 1,000 to 2,000 years ago. Some species, perhaps later. There are several Malagasy legends about a big black lemur that was seen as recently as the 18th century. This means that humans and giant lemurs coexisted on the island, and for quite a long time. Long enough for memory to remain in folklore. Long enough for charcoal from human hearths to lie next to the bones of giants in dry cave galleries. But here's what makes Ankarana more than just a paleontological site. A significant part of the caves is closed by a system of traditional prohibitions. Fady. These are not just superstitions and not tourist restrictions. Fady are sacred taboos that regulate the life of Malagasy communities. What can be eaten, what can be built, where one can enter. Violating Fady, according to local beliefs, entails death or illness. And not only for the violator, but also for his relatives. This is a collective responsibility before the ancestors. Some of the Ankarana caves are forbidden for visits by foreigners, absolutely and forever. Not restricted, specifically forbidden. Malagasy guides refuse to enter there, even for significant compensation. Biologists who tried to negotiate exceptional scientific access through local communities received a polite but steadfast refusal. What is inside is officially unknown. Anthropologists who studied the history of specific prohibitions say, these Fady have existed for so many generations that no one remembers exactly why they arose. The original meaning is lost. Only the rule remains. You cannot go there. Sometimes a traditional prohibition is just a tradition that has outlived its time. And sometimes it is a memory. A memory that someone once entered and did not return. Or found something that is better not to touch. Ankarana does not explain which version is correct. It simply keeps the doors closed and waits until someone proves brave enough or stupid enough to ask once more. Now, to a mystery that has a specific address, a specific date, and specific people, and which still remains without a final answer. Isalo National Park, southwest Madagascar. The landscape looks like the American Wild West transported to the tropics. Red and orange sandstone cliffs of Jurassic age. They are about 180 million years old. Deep canyons with palm oases at the bottom. Thermal springs, lizards on hot stones. Tourists come to take photos at sunset. Most of them do not know that a few hours' walk from the main viewpoints, niches have been cut into the rock that do not fit into any known culture of the island. The complex is called Tiniki, rectangular niches carved into the red sandstone with neat walls. Stone basins with drainage ditches arranged so that water would flow in the desired direction. Steps, walls with intentional depressions of regular shape. Traces of systematic work with stone, not crude, but thought out. The person who built this knew what they were doing and did it for more than 1 year. For a long time, the official version stated, shipwrecked Portuguese sailors of the 16th century. Madagascar lies on the trade routes between Europe and Asia. Portuguese ships really did perish here regularly, starting from the first half of the 15th century. The version was convenient, understandable, fitting into the known chronology, and incorrect. In the years 2024 to 2025, an international group of researchers conducted radiocarbon dating of organic materials found directly inside the complex. The result? 10th to 12th centuries AD. This is 300 to 400 years before the first Portuguese ships appeared in the Indian Ocean. The version collapsed. A new hypothesis, published in National Geographic and supported by several researchers, points toward Persia. Specifically, to the Zoroastrians, followers of an ancient religion who, after the Arab conquest of Iran in the 7th and 8th centuries, fled in different directions. Some to India, where they became known as Parsis and live to this day. Another part, according to medieval Arab sources, reached the east coast of Africa, to a region that Arab geographers called Vakvak, and which a number of scientists correlate precisely with Madagascar. According to the new hypothesis, this group crossed several hundred more kilometers of water and set up a refuge in the red rocks of Isalo, far from Arab trade routes, from any known power, from any persecution. Zoroastrians in the jungles of an island off the coast of Africa. It sounds like an adventure novel. But whether it is a novel or not, the niches in the rock exist physically. The date is instrumentally confirmed. The Portuguese version is refuted. And what happened to this colony next? Silence. No skeletons. No inscriptions. No traces of fire or destruction. No traces that they left voluntarily. People came, carved a refuge in the red stone, and disappeared. Where? Silence. How? Unknown. What happened to those who fled to the edge of the then-known world and beyond? Did they find peace? Or did they find something else? And the last thing, the most mysterious of all, precisely because there are no traces at all. None whatsoever. The end of the 17th century, the Indian Ocean is teeming with pirates. This is not a metaphor. According to historians' estimates, in the period from 1690 to 1730, from 1 to 2,000 pirates were active in the waters of the Indian Ocean at the same time, more than in the Caribbean Sea. Madagascar became their main base, far from European navies, close to the trade routes between Asia, India, Arabia, and Europe. Saint Marie Island off the east coast was the unofficial pirate capital. Ships wintered there, hulls were repaired, trade and captured cargo took place, and alliances were made with local Malagasy chiefs. Among the pirate stories of that time, there is one that stands apart, and which still can neither be confirmed nor refuted. In A General History of the Pirates, a book published in 1724 under the name of Captain Charles Johnson, the state of Libertalia is described. A pirate republic in the north of Madagascar, founded by a French captain named Misson and an unfrocked Italian monk named Caraccioli. A society without slavery, all captives were freed. Without kings, power was elective. Without private property, all captured cargo went into a common pot. Something between a political utopia and a real experiment on living people. The book is written convincingly. Dates, names, events, Dialogues. A description of the settlement's location. Diplomatic relations with the local Betsimi Sadaka tribe. A productive economy. Several hundred residents of different nationalities. A story of how it all eventually collapsed under a sudden attack. The only problem? No physical traces. No foundation, no coin, no shard, no bone. Not a single document created inside this republic. Even traces of fire or destruction, which should have remained if there was a sudden raid, are absent. As if several hundred people simply dissolved into the air over a tropical island. Most modern historians consider Libertalia a literary construct. The author of the book, A General History of the Pirates, is almost certainly Daniel Defoe, the same one who wrote Robinson Crusoe so convincingly that generations of readers took it for a documentary report. Defoe knew how to write truth and fiction with one voice. That is his signature style. But there is another position.
The anthropologist and economist David Graeber, who specifically researched this issue on the spot, points out in his book Pirate Enlightenment. Mixed pirate Malagasy political entities in the north of the island definitely existed. This is confirmed by independent sources not connected with Defoe. Pirates really did marry Malagasy women, had children, built houses, and integrated into local political structures. Some of their descendants became chiefs. This is not Libertalia, but it is the foundation on which a utopia could have been built. The question is not whether there was a pirate republic with a common pot. The question is exactly what was happening in the north of this island while the rest of the world was busy with colonial wars. Madagascar at the end of the 17th century was literally the last place on Earth where European laws did not work. African traditions mixed with Asian ones, and people of different cultures found themselves forced to negotiate from scratch. If anywhere an experiment on the structure of society could have arisen, it was here. Libertalia could have existed. It could have not existed. It is impossible to prove either, so far. And Madagascar is silent. As it is always silent when a question becomes too inconvenient. Stop for a second. Look at what we have seen. A sunken continent underfoot, confirmed by 3-billion-year-old zircons published in Nature Geoscience. Elephant bird bones with tool notches 10,500 years before official settlement, documented in Science Advances. People from Borneo who crossed 6,000 kilometers of open ocean without a compass, confirmed by DNA and published in PNAS. A stone forest with an area larger than Moscow, in the center of which lives something without a name, recorded on equipment and in samples of the 2019 expedition. An underground labyrinth with the bones of giant lemurs and caves closed by sacred prohibitions. It physically exists and is physically inaccessible. A Persian colony of the 10th century in the red rocks of Isalo, which disappeared without a trace, confirmed by radiocarbon analysis in 24 to 25. A pirate republic about which there is a detailed book, but not a single stone in the ground. An open question without an answer. What unites these 7 stories? Not mysticism, not conspiracy theories. Something else unites them. Every time the history of this island begins to open up, it opens up not in the direction that was expected. Every convenient answer turns out to be temporary upon closer inspection. The Portuguese in Isalo. No, not the Portuguese. The first people 2,000 years ago. No, earlier. Settlers from nearby Africa. No, from Indonesia. A closed plateau. No, someone lives there. Underground galleries studied. No, closed by tradition. This island does not hide secrets on purpose. It simply exists on its own terms, which do not coincide with what is convenient to know. A sunken continent. The first hunters about whom we know nothing. Navigators across half the planet. A stone forest without a bottom. An underground world behind closed doors. A Persian refuge without a finale. A republic that might not be. 7 mysteries of the island that is called the 8th continent, and which, it seems, has shown us only the first layer. Write in the comments, which of the stories surprised you the most, and do you believe in Libertalia? If the video grabbed you, give it a like, it helps the channel grow, and subscribe. In the next episode, we will head to a country where an underground city for 200,000 residents was found, and they still don't understand why it was built underground at all.